Shabbat shalom, everybody. Rob Shmuel with you with this week's 10-minute Torah. Surprise, what do you think? Okay, so this is a Sudra. What is a Sudra? Well, it's basically what a yarmulke used to be. Now, some people may look at it, or will, or would, and say, that sure looks a lot like a keffiyeh. Well, I believe that a sudra and a keffiyeh are probably the same thing. Maybe the Arabic and Hebrew words for, I don't know, scarf or something. But it's what they used to wear in the Middle East, and it's what Jews used to wear. The story basically is that this is what we used to wear because we cover our head for respect for who's above, right? Also, in the morning bracha, what does it say? Crowns our head with glory. There it is. And what happened was because Jews were so outstanding looking like this, and it was easy to persecute and oppress us because they, tell who we are, it gave way to the yarmulkes, which is just kind of a smaller thing. But let me show you something so that you don't think I'm kind of making this up. But this is something that was worn years ago. There's a picture of Rashi, folks. See? Turban. Rashi, turban. I'm sorry, not Rashi, Rambam, turban. And if you look, and when did he live? He lived back 1138 to 1204. If we look at Rashi, same thing, turban. That's what they wore back then. So, and I'm wearing it because, well, to make a point, yeah, a little bit, but also because, this, folks, is our heritage. Now, it's questionable whether I'd want to wear it today, being that, people wear keffiyehs, and they wear it as scarves. When I was in Israel, a keffiyeh to me was, what you see the Saudis wear. They wear a white sheet. They put like a little rope around it. And, it's ultimately designed to keep the sun off you. You are in the Middle East. It gets 110 degrees is considered a balmy day, right? So it helps keep the sun off you, and that's really what it is. But of course, in Judaism, it has the added idea that it's where we're covering our heads out of respect for God. Okay, so indulge me. I'm going to leave it on for now. I may wear it a little bit at services. I don't want to freak anybody out. Especially with today's modern connotations. But for me, I'm, just as excited to wear this as I was when I first started wearing tzitzit. Haven't really been wearing it much. It's been over 100 degrees out here. Tefillin. It's just something that I love that kind of connects me to to our heritage. Speaking of tzitzit and tefillin, something I learned the other day. I love Judaism, always learning something. And as a rabbi, my goal has always been to know everything there is to know about Judaism and not be able to not answer a question. Somebody walked into our sanctuary, our synagogue last week, who hadn't really been there before, looked at the two candles for Shabbat and said, "Why are there two candles?" I said, "Shamor v'zachor, keep and remember." Those are the commandments during the 10 Commandments, the fourth commandment to remember Shabbat. Shamor, which is keep or guard. It's a negative commandment. In other words, don't not do it. And then there's Zachor, which is remember. That's why we have the two candles for those two commandments. And he said, I've asked, people didn't really know that. Well, it's a reason. Maybe it's one reason. I've also heard that, a married couple, husband and wife, it represents that as well. In Judaism, there's always a couple of reasons for things. So getting back to the idea of where the idea for tzitzit and the straps for tefillin came, well, as far as the tzitzit goes, it says put them on your garments so that you don't forget, but it doesn't really tell you what or how. The whole idea of the knots came later on. That's what they used to do in the ancient world. They do knots, to remember things. I don't know how many of you used to get a stringer tied around your finger when you forgot your homework when you were a kid, but it's kind of the same idea. And they had the threads there. And with the tefillin, it says bind them as a sign on your arm, on your head. Well, how are you going to bind them? Let's use the straps and let's use 7. Well, the idea came about, according to Rashi, because when Abraham rescued Lot and defeated those kings that abducted him. The kings of what was it? The Babylonians, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong, but let me know. Said, you're welcome to any plunder that you want. That was what they did back then, right? You conquered people and you took their booty. That's what you got. And Abraham said in Genesis, I don't want a single thread or a strap from those people. I just want Lot back. So there it is. So that's kind of to honor Abraham. All right, let's talk about Ray. Enough of that. Ray. So Moses, once again, is having his discourse, and he's talking to all of Israel, all the Israelites that are going to go in and conquer and settle. And he's basically giving them a manual. What are you going to do when you get there? You're going to set up a society. And as Deuteronomy goes on, a big part of it is this is what you're going to do. We've already covered the idea of the courts. But now what we have is they got to destroy idolatry. Big thing. And you say, okay, big deal. Well, some of the idol worshippers, they had some really interesting practices. Look at the Romans. They had sex all the time. They ate all the time, and they had the vomitoriums to, regurgitate, so they go back and eat some more. Very, very hedonistic, very pleasurable, very, very into pleasure. And a lot of the practices of these pagans involved things that basically indulge the body lust, the lust of the body. So we don't want to do that. So they said, destroy it. Don't even be tempted by it, right? The other thing comes with the laws of tithing and charity. Well, unfortunately, not everybody is well off. Why? We all have our path. God kind of made us in his, or her, if you prefer, image. But we're not all the same. It's not a cookie cutter. Everybody is different. It's the divine image, okay? And we all have our paths that we need to go on, when we're living. We all have things we have to do, or paths we take, and careers and fulfillment. And we all get there at a certain time. You have people that are very, very successful in business. Looking back at this particular time, you had two main jobs, right? Two main career paths. You can either be an animal herder, either with ox or bull. Those are the big animals, or the flock, which is the sheeps and the goats. The herd, bulls and the oxes. Some people raise birds, whatever they did. Okay, and then other people were farmers. They raised grain or fruit or vegetables, whatever they did. Okay, and they traded and they swapped, and that's how they all got along. So some people were very, very successful. Their flocks and their herds multiplied. Their produce was fantastic, and other people just couldn't seem to make a go of it. The question is, what about the trades? You had your iron workers and your copper workers, and you had your wood gatherers and things like that. Those, I believe, I'm not sure, I may have to look it up, were people that were basically converts, people that were righteous workers that wanted to live in the land because they liked it, because, it was a great place to live. I mean, divine justice, you were treated fairly. Why not? So if you didn't have ancestral land, which is what all this was, you developed a trade. Well, there were people that couldn't exist or subsist on their own. People that weren't that successful in business, and they had to sell themselves, as indentured servants for a few years up to the seventh year, and then they would be released. And God said, if somebody owes you a debt, and it's close to the Shemitah year, and they only work for you for a year or two, let them go anyway. Don't worry about it. You will be rewarded. And send them off with enough to be able to make a better living for themselves. But you also had the Levites that, we had the tithes, a couple of times, you had the 7-year cycle, the first and the second, and the fifth and the fourth and the fifth year. 10% went to the Kohanim and the Levites. That's how they subsisted, because they didn't work. Well, they worked, but they were the ones that officiated, that did all your blessings, that, did all the offerings for you and helped you out there. But then you also had the widows and the orphans. A woman was not used to going out and herding sheep, or maybe the daughters of Zelophehad is your exception. But other than that, um, they stayed home and took care of the kids. And if they had a husband or a breadwinner that died, what do? Right? So you give to them and the orphan. Sometimes people didn't live that long. There was a lot of disease. We didn't have modern medicine. Men went off to war. They were killed. And now what is the widow supposed to do? Maybe she gets married again, or maybe she doesn't. What do? You give. And God says, I will watch what you do. I will watch what you give. I will watch how generous you are. If you're rich and you only give a pittance, I will remember that. Give according to your means. And even today, we are obligated to give charity. Don't have to give everything, right? But you are obligated. Okay, Shabbat Shalom. Thank you. Rashbi here, signing off. And thank you for listening.